This pass is well above the national average length at 8.7 kilometers and is one of 3 back-to-back passes along the R61 route between Lusikisiki and Port St. John's. There are 58 bends, corners and curves compressed into that length, and many of them exceed 90 degrees with tight arcs. It's necessary for drivers to have a high level of concentration on this pass, as it's a busy road and the many courier and delivery trucks, as well as minibus taxis, have scant regard for barrier lines. The pass name is of course taken from the Umzimvubu River, which is crossed at the foot of the pass near Port St. John's. From the northern start, the pass heads into the southwest initially, with the village of Takani on the left. Drivers who do this road for the first time will be in for a few nasty surprises, and that here you will find some of South Africa's severest speed bumps. These are unfortunately necessary to slow the wild drivers down, especially near villages and schools. The road descends via some tight corners, then sweeps towards the right, crossing a small stream at the 0.5 kilometer mark. This is followed by a gentle climb via multiple S-curves, where the summit of 289 meters is reached at the 2.4 kilometer point. The nearby town of Lusikisiki is the capital town of the Umpondo Kingdom. The name is onomatopoeic, derived from the rustling sound of reeds in the wind, named by the local Amapondo people. Lusikisiki is 45 kilometers inland from and north of Port St. John's. The town is positioned along the R61 road leading to Kokstad. Before European habitation in Lusikisiki, the Amapondo chiefs kraal occupied what is now the present town village. In 1894, European settlers started settling in Lusikisiki after Umpondo land was annexed by the Cape Colony and a magistrate took up residence there. In 1953, the South African apartheid government made attempts to persuade the people of Lusikisiki to accept the rule of Bantu authorities which they had established. The government worked with Paramount Chief Botha Sigao to attempt to start a rehabilitation scheme in Pondoland. The scheme was presented to the Lusikisiki community but was rejected. A local man called Mlinga led a large local group to attack the police. This was later known as the Lusikisiki Revolt. The countryside here is rugged, remote and untamed, and time has virtually stood still in this part of the world known as God's country or Pondoland. The countryside here consists of a series of rolling hills, lush tropical forests, wide open spaces, untouched beaches, and an untamed mystery supporting the local people's lifestyle that has changed very little over the years. Lusikisiki is a perfect little town in which to experience the beauty of the wild coast and the warmth and hospitality of the Amapondo people. The Amapondo are a welcoming people who traditionally live in huts, old style and beehive shaped. Traditionally, they have a love of ornaments and beadwork, and they are very involved in welcoming visitors to this part of the country. The dramatic stretch of coastline that lies between Port St. John's and the Mkambati Nature Reserve is virtually untouched and an outdoor enthusiast's paradise. This part of the world, rich in milkwood trees and wildness, has unrivaled access to hiking, mountain biking, canoeing, fishing, surfing, and visits to local villages. Any accommodation is merely an afterthought to house travelers. Essentially, the landscape is uncultivated, about enchanting scenery and pure wildness. But whilst the untamed beauty and the views and places one can visit are great, what holds one spellbound here is the silence and the peace that this section of the Eastern Cape encompasses with very little effort. Despite all the dangers on this pass, it offers fabulous scenery, and especially towards the middle of the pass where the gates of St. John start making an appearance. The road soon swings through a U-shaped bend of 160 degrees and starts descending along the eastern flank of the Malongwana mountain. The descent eases off at a saddle at the 5.3 kilometer mark, where a large and unsightly quarry is visible to the right. The road begins ascending briefly towards the quarry entrance, then eases back into the descent mode as the bends come thick and fast and the gradient reaches its steepest level at 1 in 8. Along this final descent, there are great views of the gates of St. John, but unfortunately there are very few places to stop safely. Looking at the gates, the mountain on the right is known as Mount Thesiger, and the one on the left is known as Mount Sullivan. Both were named after British officers. Port St John's town centre is small and crammed with vendors, taxis and locals going about their daily business. Most of the better accommodation is set along both banks of the river behind tall fences. If you fancy a swim in the ocean, head off to Second Beach, which is really good, but make sure someone can look after your car. The fishing is excellent, and a drive up to Mount Thesiger via the old airport road is a must. Glimpses of the Umzimvubu River appear on the right, and a barrage of signs indicate that you're reaching a place of holidays and accommodation. One final right-hand bend brings the full length of the Ponderland Bridge into view. The river here is 160 meters wide, requiring 4 large concrete pylons to support the bridge deck. The pass ends at the T-Junction on the southern side of the bridge. Turn left to go to Port St John's, or turn right if you're heading to Umtata.